All right, so we're diving deep today into ordaining the good and forbidding the evil in Islam.
Go ahead.
And we've got a fascinating YouTube lecture transcript to unpack, episode 245, from Sufyan Abu Ayyub's channel.
Sounds good.
Let's get to it.
What's really interesting about this one is that it's part of a larger series that this channel has been doing.
Oh, okay.
On the book Riyad as-Salihin.
Okay.
Which translates to Gardens of the Righteous.
I see.
And think of it as like a guidebook filled with sayings and stories about the Prophet Muhammad, showing Muslims how to live a good life.
So not just some random lecture, but part of a bigger conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what are we focusing on in this episode?
So this one zeroes in on a specific saying of the Prophet Muhammad, a hadith passed down by one of his companions, Huhayfa ibn al-Yaman.
Okay.
And this guy wasn't just any follower, though.
Right.
He was known for his wisdom, especially about like future events.
Oh, wow.
And challenges for Muslims.
Challenges, okay.
People really trusted his knowledge.
So this hadith is coming from someone people really respected.
Exactly.
What does it say?
Well, it starts with the Prophet Muhammad swearing an oath.
Okay.
Saying, by the one who turns the hearts. And this is a big deal because when he swore by Allah, it meant he was about to drop some serious wisdom.
It's like when we say, I swear on everything. Like, you're really serious.
It means you're not messing around.
Right, exactly.
And Prophet would use different oaths to emphasize this, like, by the one in whose hand is my soul.
Wow.
It's like he's saying, this is important, listen up.
So what is this crucial message he's swearing on?
He says, certainly you will ordain the good.
Okay.
And the way it's phrased in Arabic with specific prefixes and suffixes, super emphatic.
Okay.
There's zero doubt this ayah is going to happen.
You will. Okay.
Yeah.
So who is the you here?
It's talking to all Muslims.
The whole community?
The whole community.
Okay.
And what they're supposed to do is ordain the good and forbid the evil.
So it's not just enough to be a good person yourself.
Right.
You have to encourage good.
Yeah.
And speak out against bad stuff happening around you.
Exactly. It's a central concept in Islam, actually, called al-amr bil-ma'ruf was al-nahi and al-munkar.
Okay.
Ordaining the good and forbidding the evil.
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
So it's a collective responsibility.
Yes.
But the level of obligation varies, I guess, depending on the situation and the person's ability to act.
Precisely.
So, like, if I see someone about to hurt another person, stepping in directly might be a must-do.
Right.
But if it's something like speaking up against corruption, that might require a different approach.
Exactly. It could mean working within the system.
Okay.
Or raising awareness, finding other ways to create change.
Right.
It's not always about, like, direct confrontation.
Got it.
Yeah.
What happens if we don't do this? The Hadith seems pretty clear about the consequences of neglecting this duty, or else Allah will swiftly send upon you a punishment from him.
Yeah.
And that word swiftly sounds pretty intense.
It is. It suggests the consequences are immediate.
No waiting around.
No waiting around.
What kind of punishment are we talking about here?
Well, so the word punishment itself has different interpretations.
Okay.
Some scholars say it's worldly stuff.
Like what?
Social unrest, economic hardship, things like that.
Interesting, okay.
Others focus more on the spiritual consequences, like becoming distant from Allah's mercy.
Okay.
But the common thread is that ignoring this duty leads to bad things.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
It gets even more intense when the hadith says, then you will supplicate him, but he will not respond to you.
Right.
What's that about?
There are two main ways to understand this.
Okay.
One is that people will plead with those who are doing wrong to stop.
Okay.
But their cries will be ignored because it's too late.
So the damage is already done.
The damage is done, yeah.
Yeah. You face the music because you didn't act when you had the chance.
Right.
Got it.
The other interpretation is that people will pray to Allah for relief.
Okay.
But their prayers won't be answered.
You'd
because they ignored this crucial duty in the first place.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah.
So neglecting this duty to ordain the good isn't just a personal failing.
Right.
It can have real consequences for everyone.
Exactly.
And that brings us to something else this lecture discusses. Corrupt rulers.
Yes.
As a result of society's failings.
That's where things get interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because does that mean corrupt leaders are a direct reflection of the people they govern?
Right. Are they a result?
Is that too simplistic?
Yeah, it's a chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah.
Do bad leaders create a bad society?
Yeah.
Or does a bad society allow bad leaders to rise to power?
Exactly. And where does personal responsibility fit into all of this?
Right, right.
These are big questions.
Yeah, they are.
They've been debated throughout Islamic history. But one thing's for sure.
What's that?
There are tons of examples of unjust rulers and how righteous people responded to them.
Interesting.
Some chose to challenge those rulers directly, while others focused on maintaining their own faith and resisting injustice in quieter ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that takes us to the final part of the Hadith,
Okay.
where the Prophet Muhammad says that the best form of struggle, jihad, is speaking truth to an unjust ruler.
Now that's considered a superior form of jihad because it takes guts.
It does, yeah.
It's easy to, talk about justice.
Right.
But to actually stand up to someone powerful who could harm you, that takes serious faith and courage.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the easy way out.
No.
And the lecture even mentions the story of the believer who challenged Pharaoh.
Yeah. What an example, right?
Talk about taking a stand.
Yeah.
But the speaker also emphasizes that this doesn't mean being reckless.
Right. Approaching unjust rulers requires wisdom and strategy, not just blind courage.
So how do you balance those two?
Well, early Muslims advised speaking privately, using written communication.
I see.
Finding other ways to get the message across
right.
if a direct confrontation was too dangerous.
So it's about being smart and strategic.
Yeah.
Choosing the most effective way to make a difference. You're not just like blindly charging in.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like this concept of ordaining the good and forbidding the evil is a lot more nuanced than I initially thought.
It is. It's definitely not black and white.
Yeah.
And that's a recurring theme in this lecture.
What do you mean?
Well, it's about understanding the principles and then applying them thoughtfully to real-life situations.
It's not one size fits all.
It's not one size fits all.
So Islam recognizes that life is complex.
Yes.
There's not a single answer for every problem.
Exactly. It encourages critical thinking.
Okay.
And personal responsibility.
I see.
You're engaging with the teachings and applying them wisely, instead of blindly following a set of rigid rules.
And speaking of applying these teachings,
a
lecture gives examples of how this idea of ordaining the good and forbidding the evil goes beyond just dealing with rulers.
Yes, it's about everyday life, too.
Like what?
Like let's say you see someone doing something wrong. How do you react? Do you speak up?
Okay.
Do you physically intervene? Or do you walk away?
Right.
And there's no right answer.
Okay.
It all depends on the specific situation and what you're capable of doing.
So it's about sizing up the situation and choosing the most appropriate response. That can be tough, though.
It can be. It takes both courage and good judgment.
That does.
And that brings us to something else that's important. Your intention.
Okay.
It's not just about what you do, but why you're doing it.
Because I guess it's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment and react out of anger or frustration instead of actually trying to make things better.
Exactly. Your actions should be driven by a genuine desire to do what's right.
Right.
Not by ego or self-righteousness or a need to control others.
I see. That's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Especially when confronting someone who's doing wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to let your emotions get the better of you.
It is.
But what about the consequences for those who are doing the wrong in the first place?
That's a great question.
You know, if we're talking about ordaining good and forbidding evil.
The lecture doesn't go into a ton of detail about that.
Okay.
But it does emphasize that ultimately everyone is responsible for their own actions.
So even if someone seems to be getting away with bad behavior, they'll still face consequences.
That's a core belief in Islam, yeah.
What is?
Justice will prevail.
One way or another.
One way or another.
And there's no escaping the consequences of your choices.
I had it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But I feel like we've just scratched the surface
of
this whole concept of ordaining the good and forbidding the evil.
Yeah, it's a big one. It is. Yeah, it's a big one.
It is. So,
yeah.
Before the break, we were talking about how everyone is accountable for their choices.
Right.
No one gets a free pass.
Yeah.
When it comes to the consequences of their actions.
Exactly.
But what are some real-world examples of this ordaining good and forbidding evil?
Like in action.
Yeah, like how does it actually play out?
Okay, so the lecture gives a few interesting examples.
Okay.
Like imagine you see someone being bullied.
Okay, yeah.
what do you do?
I mean, ideally, you step in and stop it, right?
Right. But it's not always that simple.
Yeah, of course. It depends on the situation.
It does, yeah.
Like, if you think you can safely intervene, maybe you do.
Right.
But what if the bully is, like, way bigger than you, or there's a group of them?
Exactly.